Hi, welcome to another video. Today's recipe is going to be a quick pickled red onion that we're going to actually store in a glass jar, but without canning it, boiling anything, or even using hot water. So this should last in the fridge for about 10 days. So let's walk through the ingredients. I have 2 large red onions that I'm going to slice up thinly. You could use a mandolin, but I'm just going to do it with a knife. And then for our pickling liquid, it's going to be 1.5 cups of apple cider vinegar and then 1/2 cup of regular water at room temperature. I like that this is really simple, really easy. I have 2 teaspoons of salt, some maple syrup, about 4 tablespoons. These other items are optional, but I'm going to use peppercorns, red pepper flakes, some dill, and 2 bay leaves to give it some flavor. All the specific measurements will be in the recipe below the video. So I wanted to show you a tool that I use to kind of sharpen the knives between each use. Ideally, you want to do it each time you use a knife, but I realistically do it maybe once a week. There's different slots. I use the sharper, more coarse one, and then a buffer to sharpen my knives as I go in between getting them professionally sharpened. So I wanted to show you my freezer bag. Here I have some celery ends saved from another recipe. So all I do is have this large bag in my freezer. I add to it as I chop random vegetables, and as long as they're well washed, they will be perfectly good to use in a broth at a future time. So there are a few different ways to cut the onion. You could cut it along where we've already cut into half moons, but I'm actually gonna cut along the other side and kind of follow the shape of the onion, and this makes the strips just a little bit more, presentation wise, more appealing, because this will be used as a condiment and as a topping to different things, so I think it should look nice. So I'm trying to do my best to cut them as straight as I can, and also go slow enough to where I'm not having issues with my knife. So take your time if you have to. And I think this is generally the correct technique for chopping an onion, actually. And then I remembered my bread scraper, so using that as well. And remember to always tuck in your fingernails down to your knuckles as the knife gets closer to you, because you really don't want to cut your nail or cut the top part of your finger. The bench scraper is a really nice tool for these kinds of large chopping projects. Now you saw me put the onion into a colander that's over a bowl. That's because we're gonna let them sit covered with a little bit of salt to let some of the juice drain. This will both soften the red onion a little bit, soften it up, ready, and get it sort of pre-pickled. And then it will also take off some of that really strong onion flavor from all the onions that we have in here. So I'm shaking a little bit more salt. We're gonna mix it all together, and you could use your hands too, just be careful. Some of the ends of the onions are kind of sharp, and the colander can be sharp too. And I'm gonna shake a little bit more salt on top again, and this is outside of the 2 teaspoons that we're using inside the actual pickling liquid. I'm gonna let it sit for about 20 minutes on my counter and drain out some of that juice. Now I want to talk to you about the actual equipment that we'll use. Now you don't need very specific canning equipment, because we're not going to be boiling or canning this. We're really just putting the lid on and tightening it, and we're leaving it in the refrigerator. The refrigerator is what will serve to just preserve this onion, but only up to 10 days. So you could also use a wide mouth jar. This is the style that I have, and I also like that I bought these weights. It's just a glass weight that will hold whatever you're pickling below the surface of the liquid or the brine that's inside that jar. So that's a quick tip. But if you don't have actual canning jars, you could also just use a container like this. This is like a pantry glass jar, but it is airproof, and that's the important key there. If you didn't have that, you can just use any kind of Tupperware you have. I have plastic one, there's glass ones. They generally come with airtight lids as well. You just want a tight fitting lid so that mold doesn't develop. And even more simple than that, you could also use just a glass bowl or drinking glass to pickle it. You may need to use more of them for this many onions, but I really am emphasizing the fact that you could be living in a really small kitchen or even in a dorm room with limited equipment. This is a recipe you can do even in those situations. I mean, you just need a Ziploc bag, cover it, rubber band, tighten it, try to get as much air out and then tighten it with a rubber band, or tightly with saran wrap. So there's so many different options. You don't have to have specialized equipment to do a project like this. So the onions have been sitting now for about 20 minutes. You can see they've released some of that juice, and now we're ready to put it in the jar. So some recipes require you to actually pre-mix all these ingredients together in a certain order. I'm not doing any of that. I'm putting in the onions first. I'm going to put in my spices and sweetener, and then the very last item will be pouring the vinegar on top. What will actually mix all these together is me just tightening the lid and shaking it vigorously at the very end. All the onions fit really nicely, and this is a 32-ounce jar, so this was just the perfect recipe, just the perfect amounts for this size. And as a side note, I wanted to mention I am actually wearing the apron that I featured in my spring haul clothing video. I really love this apron. I can see even on camera it's so vibrant and bright and cool. And I am not fully ready to be fully 100% on camera myself. I don't always feel like I'm put together. And I'm also focused on weight loss this year in a very serious way. So when I feel more comfortable about being on camera, I definitely will. I would love to do makeup tutorials as well. I have lots of ideas for content like that. So please stay tuned. I'm basically on a little bit of a self-improvement journey this year. So please be patient with me. I will be on camera eventually. And I would like to do the hauls in person in the mirror as well. So back to the pickles. They've been sitting on my counter for an hour, and then I'm going to leave them overnight in the fridge and up to 10 days. I did taste them after just 1 hour, and they had such great flavor. They were so tangy, a little spicy, but I think the herbs really gave it a really nice depth of flavor. So I hope you try this recipe. This would be great as a side or on top of like a pulled pork sandwich, a pulled beef sandwich, something like a Cubano panini would be delicious. So many ways you can eat this, salad toppings, etc. So hope you try this recipe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.